just explain what's the difference, I suppose, all the way back here.
I didn't quite get that, but I think you're getting at the difference in
Yeah,
conditions and environment.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
the biggest thing, obviously, when you're in Johannesburg or Pretoria is the altitude. So altitude and heat, really. So whenever you come up to South Africa, it's you've got to cope with the heat. And then when you come up to Joburg and Pretoria, like I said, it's the altitude. So that's the biggest thing, really. Obviously, we're used to coming out here now, and we have some protocols back home that we'll utilize to ensure that when we come out here, we have got some heat acclimation protocols under our belt to prepare for what's to come. Now, there is pros and cons to coming out at altitude. Like we spent the majority of our trip at altitude to ensure that we could effectively cash in on a little bit of training, because there is positive physical adaptation we're looking to get from that. And obviously, we were looking to come back into a top eight spot as well. So to utilize those adaptations for when we come back home. So really, it's a negative that you're coming out at altitude because it's much tougher, obviously. But there are positive aspects where you can cash in a little bit of training, get some positive adaptation from it, which you could take them back home or take them down to sea level, for example, at Durban, or when we come back out and obviously be at Cape Town then.
Is it helpful that you get the 2 weeks together and you get, just under 2 weeks there, so that by the time you get to the second week, that you're sort of acclimatized to whatever conditions that you've got there to deal with?
Yeah, absolutely. I think like you said, the dose is the biggest thing. A week isn't enough. You need to get at least 9 exposures probably in terms of training at altitude to get some sort of adaptation. So you can do it two ways. You can either come out early or have all your training camp out here, or you travel up to altitude the day before. So we've decided that we like the training camp and also coming out to Joburg. So we came out here last January. We know the facilities, we know the gym, we know the pitches, we know the hotel, we know the food. So that makes that logistically much easier as well. So there's lots of positives to coming out and, like I said, cashing in at those at the altitude. But yeah, you're right. There's a certain time you need to be spent here to get physical adaptation from training, but also passive adaptation from just spending time at altitude. For example, as soon as you land, the players' heart rates are going to go, resting heart rate's going to go through the roof, and heart rate variability is going to drop as well. So we do need time to get back to what would be natural for those guys to then start the training and get a real good dose here.
And I suppose you're at the end of a long season. A lot of the work's been done anyway, isn't it? This is just the sort of the final bits of a very long campaign.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the one thing we're chasing, like we said, together as adaptation is intensity. You have to get intensity within your training, and when you come out, there's lots of stresses. Obviously, when we come out, there's time away from family, for example. There's different conditions, and the one thing we need to get those adaptations is intensity. So, like you said, we got lots of volume under our belt. We've got a year's training under our belt. So we didn't need to go chasing that. It's more about above game intensity. Make sure the boys can feel that and know what's coming when we get to game day. And those relationships are what's most important, like you said.
Probably final one for me, Sam. It's the last week game of the season for you. I'm just interested what happens now, because obviously you sort of send them off. They go off in their 5 weeks. It's not like the old school. They all go and lie on a beach for 5, 6 weeks and come back in July. But what's the process now? Because obviously you finish your last game. Do you tail off straight away? Do you have a week or two and then you send them off where they've got their 5, 6 weeks, whatever it is, and then they come back into pre-season in a certain condition where they start them the hard work all over again?
Yeah, so we'll get a period now where we'll catch up with the boys next week as soon as we get back into Heathrow on Monday morning. Boys, then we'll be coming back in the end of the week and we'll have one-to-ones with the players, really to set the scene for the off-season and the pre-season, where we'll have a physical work on in the off-season. Post that meeting, boys have 5 weeks. So like you said, they have 5 weeks, 2 weeks following that meeting, get away. Like you said, I want them to be on the beach for those 2 weeks, in all honesty, because they need, as much of a mental break as well as a physical. Like I said, for all clubs, rugby union season is long, and there's lots of things that come along in that as well. So getting away is important, and then we'll have a couple of weeks where they'll train off-site, or coming to Llandarcy. I prefer for them to be off-site, in all honesty, where they can get a little bit of work under their belts before we come back in for pre-season then.
I said it's a little bit different. They're professional now. It's a little bit different from the old days where they'd go away for six weeks, 8 weeks, come back, and then have to be flogged. They're pretty fit now. Most of them coming back when you start pre-season officially, anyway, aren't they? Because they need to be really, and they do top it up.
Yeah, absolutely. I think boys know that if you don't come back in a certain condition, you do make things difficult for yourself. And in all honesty, you know the players we got, they work hard. They know that when they come in, my main focus is physically prepared, and I want to get that from as much rugby as I can. Um, I shouldn't have to isolate physical needs really. It should all come from rugby. And if a player comes back in and they're in decent enough condition, then we know we got a certain amount of time where I can keep driving that. And in all honesty, our players are excellent. They'll yes get away, but they also know they're coming back in. You don't want to make things difficult for yourself, and we can concentrate on what's most important, and that's the rugby. And I'll get as much as I can from the conditioning from that. Then,
Lovely. Thank you for that, Simon. Much appreciated. Good luck at the weekend, and I hope you get an off season yourself.
cheers. Thank you very much.
Simon, Simon Thomas Shankat. I don't know if you can answer this, but I'll ask you anyway. Who is who's the fittest player in the Osprey squad?
Oh, fittest player. Okay. Maybe I'm being biased here. I think our boys are in all good condition. Well, majority of them. Fittest one measured from a Bronco. So we got a number of guys under like 430s on a Bronco. Some boys 420s. Majority of halfbacks are there. A couple of centres are there as well. And in all honesty, Ruben Morgan-Williams, Keelan Hardy, Lukey Dye, Tom Florence, young centres, is in those 420s. He's a big centre as well, 100 kilos. So they're the guys. And I think when you look at fitness, it's all relative as well in terms of how you play. We test capacity, but I think the biggest thing is you also look at the rugby metrics. So who is able to play the way we need them to play? Who is able to have that repeatability, especially in the forwards, because it's something that GPS doesn't measure contacts, for example. When you have someone who can repeat that collision and be effective in collision is also important. So yeah, we measure them capacity-wise in certain tests, but there's an element of collision fitness the players need. And the ones who stand out with that would be your Jack Morgans, it would be your Morgan Morrises, and players like that who have repeatability in collision, both sides of the ball. I think that's, if anything, more important in the game we play.
I would imagine over the years as well, someone who set the standards would have been Tips. What's he been like to work with? I would imagine he's probably. I would imagine he's one of the easiest to work with because of his work ethic.
Yeah, absolutely. Tips is unbelievably fit, always has been. And he is so intelligent when he plays. It also means he doesn't waste energy as well. He's always one step ahead, as you guys know when we watch the game. He's a work with because Tips knows exactly what he needs to do to be able to go. Like, don't get me wrong, to Tips, rugby will always be the most important thing, but he'll do everything he needs to do off the field to ensure that he can train, ensure that he can play. Like ultimate pro off the field, to ensure that he can go. And yeah, those are, like I said, the players who know exactly what it is to get to the very top of the game, know what it takes off the field as well as on the field, and he just epitomizes that really.